Hey there, welcome back. We're going to continue with the Accessory Drive saga, and this will be part 3. Here we go. We'll get right to it, show you what we're doing. We last left off closing up the gearbox and tightening the fasteners, torquing them down to the proper spec. Now we need to accessorize it, install safety wire. There's a little bracket in the actuator for the power setting can be installed, and then we'll be ready to install the case assembly, I should say, to the front of the intake housing, compressor and intake housing, and back where it belongs. So here we go. Here are a few different angles of the completed accessory drive housing, of the completed accessory drive assembly, we'll call it. We've got the cover tightened together, got it safety wired. We've installed our actuator. This is the power setting actuator. That's upside down. This basically also could be referred to as a servo, similar to, say, in model airplanes or model cars, or radio controlled aircraft models, cars, boats, where you can actuate a control surface or a throttle position. This is an electric motor and gear set assembly which runs both clockwise and counterclockwise, and it rotates this shaft here very slowly. In it there's an arm, and then this actuates through a short piece of linkage right to the fuel control. And this is how I'm varying the speed power setting from my control console. As you can see, it's electric, it's DC, 28 volt DC. So everything operates very simple, and that actually is very convenient. I don't have to have a throttle control cable, a mechanical linkage cable, to operate this engine. So that is one bonus plus. This little stud here is a drain plug. No, this stud here is a magnetic metal particle gathering device. It threads in the bottom, and you would call it a drain plug, except for actually this is the drain plug. This is not at the lowest point in the gear case, so when you want to drain the oil out, you use this small drain. This is removed for inspection to see if there is any metal shavings or particles gathering on the magnets. The other end of this, a stud, is for attaching and supporting the front of this engine in its original installation. This will not be used, but it's part of the original J44, so we want to kind of keep it. To me, that's part of this, is its cool original look. Try to keep some of that nostalgia. Alright, this view is looking straight down at 12 o'clock on the top of the accessory drive, of this accessory drive assembly. So this would be the fill plug to put our oil in. Okay, there we go. We got safety wire installed. It's not the prettiest, I know, and I'm not very practiced at it, but I got it on there at least. Even this tiny little bit here, these little screws, these are like 632 machine screws that hold the actuator in place. We don't want that coming loose for sure. Next step will be installing her back onto the engine, and we will be ready to install a starter. And let's motor this engine over, see how it sounds, get her turning, and start bringing a little life back to it. Okay, we're getting ready to install this accessory drive. Set up here. I have fabricated a couple of guide pins. It's instructed in the service manual. You just take a 5/16 bolt and cut the head off. It's got a shank here. This is I don't know, what is that, 2.5, 2 3/4 inch bolt. Cut the head off, file it so it's nice and smooth, and we thread these in a couple of these holes. And when we install this on the front, these will help guide through and line up the holes. And then we have the 2 alignment pins. And once those contact, then we can get some screws started and thread them up by finger tight and slowly snug them, drawing them in over these alignment pins. And then once they're started, everything's square, we can then remove these, unthread them, they come out, and then we put the last two attaching screws in. So we thread these all the way in where I don't have any threads. They're pretty well flush with the surface. Now see there, two nice. So there you are, homemade tools. See, simple, easy. Cut the bolts off, make them smooth. Nothing special here at all. This is our gasket for the gasket for our accessory drive housing. I'm going to look here. We're using this gasket. And I know you might get funny looks from people, but you know what? This sucker is absolutely rubberized, pliable, smooth. It's not ripped or torn. Still got part numbers printed on it. So you know what? You can't beat the original stuff. If it's that good, I'm putting it back on. I think it'll be fine. Okay, now we're going to look here. I'm going to put it exactly like it was when it was removed. And you can see a little outline here. This is the side that was facing the housing. This little bump lines up with this little bump here, and we'll show you why. On the accessory drive housing, there was a bearing that evidently fell back close to the edge. They had to make a little exception. Almost like maybe it was a little bit of an afterthought. I don't know. Okay, so there we go. Our two guide pins are here. We got our holes lined up. Uh-oh. Okay, there we go. Didn't need any. I thought maybe we just put some chewing gum on there. Hold that on, but I think it's good. Now we can install our drive housing. So we'll get some screws and A-end washers ready, and we'll be ready to put this on. Okay, we're listening to the 70s today, so because I'm getting old too. Sorry, it's kind of getting into my era. Brings back memories. We have our stub shaft and some good old oil here in our bottle. What we're going to do is lube this shaft a little bit and then install it. That way it's already got oil there, and why wait it? You know, we definitely don't want anything ever running dry. Ever. Alright, so we're going to lube this with the same lubricant that will be in this in the accessory drive gearbox housing, because this is gasketed, as you can see. There's a small hole. If you see this hole in the gasket at the 6 o'clock, very bottom position, that lines up with the small hole here in this case. We're going to go ahead and oil this a little. Get both ends, dumbass. Okay, so I get a little of the excess oil. I don't want it just dripping all over me. There we go. Okay, so we got both ends of that pre-lubed. Got my rubber glove on here because this stuff's not really good for your skin. I think you're supposed to wear these gloves. Sorry, we get all kinds of noises here. I think my water softener's So we have a prepared screw with some NICs. So we have our two guide pins installed. We have our stub shaft installed. Our gasket ready. It's installed. There we go. So we'll use these guide pins as the starting point. That's the theory. Okay, then of course we've got to get the old shaft to line up with a spline. So now I'll magically hold this housing with one hand and just gently turn the engine, the main rotor, and you saw that would happen. Alright, now we're going to attempt to start our top one of our screws, and there it goes, nice and smooth, threading right in. As you can see, this housing's almost all the way back against the accessory drive is almost pretty much back against the.
These are the most popular songs from Maine to Hawaii, from Alaska to Florida. I'm Casey Kasem, and the countdown continues with a tune at number 8 that peaked last week at 7. Marvin Gaye.
Got our screws cleaned up using a Dremel tool, or hand tool, and a little small fine wire brush. But these are pretty. These are original. These screws were in the J44 originally, so it's nice to use the nostalgic ones. There. Okay, we'll continue installing these screws, and we're not going to sit there and we'll bore you with the details, as we said many times before. We'll get all these in here and started, and then we can remove our 2 guide pins and then install the 2 final screws there. And once you start it right in, I tell you, it is a bit easier if you just use the hex bit socket. I'll see if we can pull this bottom end in down here. It looks like it's still out. There. Oh yeah, look at that. Yep, see, it's pulling right up. Okay, good deal. Alright, well, we won't bore you with... I'll go ahead and get the rest of these all in and started, and then we'll come back with the magic of editing and splicing. The old-fashioned terms. Digitally editing and splicing. Thank God for that. Alright, we have all 8 screws started and snug up to their AN washer. We got the housing complete. We have the housing completely drawn tight to the gasket, no gaps, evenly all the way around. So there we go. Now we just got to torque them all down. We'll spare you that detail. Torque down and safety wire, and these screws wired together, safety wired together in pairs. So take a little time there. It's not real convenient, but I suppose that's nothing compared to many of the safety wire things that Agent JC encounters. I think you look at one of his videos called, he had a series of videos he did on rebuilding a T-58 turbo shaft engine for a race boat. In that series of videos, there's one where it was the hardest lock wire, I think was the title name, maybe, something to that effect. But look that up. Boy, he is reaching way down in there. It's not a very tight spot, or a very good spot. It looks like they would have had some kind of other way to do it, but hey, what do I know? Be nice to see that turn and not make any noise or anything. That'd be okay. So if everything spins freely, we're going to tighten down a lock wire of the screws. We'll put some oil in the case. We're going to try to motor it over with the electric starter and see how it sounds. Hey, we got the accessory drive torqued down, but I did not safety wire it because I think it's time to do a motoring test before we safety wire it, just to make sure everything's smooth and quiet. If everything sounds good, then we're going to assume that it's okay to go on from there. So I've already put oil in the case, got it filled to the proper level. So we're going to go ahead and attach the starter temporarily, and again, that way we can motor it with, our battery power. We're going to use 2 power settings in a very crude fashion for the starter. I'm going to start out using only 1 battery, which is 12 volts DC. We're going to apply that directly to the starter terminals using jumper cables. That will be a gentle start, soft start, and it'll come up to half the RPM theoretically. And if all that sounds good, we're going to disconnect it, and then we're going to connect both batteries in series, giving 24 volts to the starter, which is basically full voltage. That will bring her up to the starting RPM if we're going to start the engine. So let's see how that sounds. And if all passes and things are smooth, then we're going to call that a good day. Okay, so here we go. We're going to show you the test of motoring, and I got Fran here observing. She is a somewhat uninterested observer, and many times they make the best observers because they're not particularly listening for anything that's special. They are just listening. If they may hear something and observe something you don't hear. So remember that tip from Uncle Darren. Get a non-partial observer. They many times can help. Here we go. Stand by. Okay, so it's going to spark here, but we'll... Ready?
Yeah.
It'll jump, it should jump a lot.
There it goes.
This trash bag over here. See, I believe that out like a sock. Trash bag. I'll try to get so See how easy and gentle that was? It didn't just explode to life. Well, let's see what this does. Pretty smooth, and think you could stop that from turning? Okay, good. Got a little bit of a
like the rattling.
yeah. I think that's the bearing. It always made a little bit of noise, but that's okay. It did that noise before. Now we can put full power to it and see if it just really will zing then. Let's zing a little bit. You stay where you are there. Now we're going to put full power to it. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
That sounded a little more serious, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
You see, it does blow. It moves a lot of air, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It's a big giant fan. Okay, well now we know it's. That's the first time that dude just spun like that for, I don't know, it's been over 2 years. Or it's been longer now, ever since it quit running. Okay, thank you, Lord. Well, there you go. We got her going. Got it. It sounded pretty good on the motoring test, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. So safety wiring, those attaching screws, that'll be done. Then we'll be ready to start installing our actual accessories onto the accessory drive, and that will be another leap forward here. Get the fuel pump, fuel control assembly on, because that will be then allow me to start installing all the plumbing. There are many fuel lines and tubings to install that are very kind of tricky, like a puzzle. It's like a Jenga puzzle. We're going to get going on that, and then that should move this project forward at a pretty good rate. Once the fuel tubing is all done and this front end's wired and the accessories are tied all tied in. Once the accessories are all tied in the front here and the plumbing is done around the accessory band, then it'll be getting close to the end. We can start doing leak tests and things like that. We'll actually put some fuel in the tank. We can hook up the fuel line in the pump and pressurize it, and let's see, then start looking for leaks. So I appreciate everybody's patience. Thank you for watching, and I hope this end result brought some people some confidence. How's that? I'm sure Agent Jay-Z feels good knowing his name is in there spinning around and around, his autograph there on that shaft, on the rotor shaft. So remember, if you remember, he autographed that for me after balancing it. So you can always review my videos, go back and look. This has been ongoing, like I said, for several years since the beginning, and then at least 2 years, honestly, in this rebuilding and restoration project. So long and drawn out as usual, everything I do. Alrighty, well, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Soon to follow will be some installation of accessories. Alright? Have a good one. See you on the next.